I'm going to record everything just so you can go back and watch it if you need to. I also have, you can see down here, you can see which keys I'm pressing. Yeah, we'll put this up on YouTube afterwards so you can watch if you need to. When you first open Fusion for the first time, there's a new update. I'm still getting used to it. I just updated. But yours will look somewhat similar to what you see on my screen right now. But you have a couple options down here. You're going to want hybrid design as your default. It's not on my screen, but just imagine or look at your screen. You should see something similar. And then for units, I work in millimeters. Our 3D printers work in millimeters. But if you think in inches, if you're like a longtime carpenter and that's the only way you can think, do it in inches. You can always switch them on a case-by-case basis. Like when you're working within a model, super easy to toggle between the two. You can also use a hybrid setup. You could use feet and millimeters. Fusion's very flexible. But for defaults, use what you think you'll normally use. And then the last one was like mouse setup. If you're not familiar with any previous 3D modeling software, do Fusion. If you know SolidWorks or something else and you want to stick with the same mouse movement buttons, you can switch it with one of those. But I recommend all you guys do the Fusion because that's what I use, that's what the keybinds you'll see on my screen, and that's what I'll explain verbally. You pick anything else, you got to figure it out on your own. So mine looks slightly different because my accounts existed for a while. It already knows a handful of things about me, but I am just setting up this new update for the first time. So when you launch into Fusion, you'll see one of a handful of different views. You may see a view just like this. This is essentially your workspace. You may also open Fusion and have the data panel on the left, or there is this view as well that very typically will open up to like your first time opening Fusion. I never used this view, never felt the need to. You can sort it, whatever. But I typically use Fusion kind of like Google Chrome in a way. Like you have tabs, and you can just add new tabs. So I can just create, new tabs. It didn't used to do this and ask you every time. It used to have defaults and everything was hybrid. I don't really know what the difference is now with assembly versus part design, but I guess we'll figure it out as we go. So that's what this top bar is you've got your tabs there, and then top right you have your little profile photo, or in this case lack thereof, and preferences and account everything. And then this home button that I showed you at first, that just took you to this view. You guys won't see this. This is just a plugin I have installed. And then you have like your standard kind of quick access file, same stuff that you would have on most, like in Photoshop, say, you have underneath file, you have save and export and stuff. That's just down here. It may be a little different on a Windows machine. I'm on Mac. If something looks slightly different, make your best guess. If it doesn't work, ask me or Professor. It's pretty similar between Mac and Windows. Any of you that have used AutoCAD on Mac and Windows, you'll know they're entirely different and it's really annoying. This doesn't have that problem. It's very similar. Okay, so that's your top bar. And then just below that, where it says design, this is kind of your workspace toggle. So we are going to, for this class, I think we're only going to be in design and possibly render. But you should, for now, unless told otherwise, you should see design in the top left. This is just setting what our toolbar is and what tools we have quick access to. And so that's what we want. To the right of that, you have your toolbar. And this will kind of adapt based on what you're doing. So right now I have my basic 3D shape creation, but let's just say I were to create a 2D sketch, which is what this first one is. You'll notice if you watch this bar up top, as soon as I select a plane to sketch on, it changes contextually based on what we're doing at the time. So you'll see this move around. You'll see different tools from time to time. They'll change based on what tool you have active, whether you're 2D sketch or 3D modeling. You will pretty much always be in the default tab, which is solid. I don't expect us to be in surface, and then these other 5 I have never used in like 10 years of using Fusion. For certain workflows, you may need them. For this class, you won't. So we'll just be in solid and or surface, maybe surface, but mostly solid.
Andrew, I'm doing the same assignment where it's the primitives.
Okay.
The primitives and
Cool.
moving them around.
Cool. So do you want me to kind of get started on that? Cool. I'll just finish the laying out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do one at a time and then have them do it so that they kind of work on it.
Cool. Okay. So that's all of your tools up top. You have little glyph icons. These are like to quickly select them. If you're not sure what each one does, you can hover over it. It'll tell you revolve. If you hover for even longer, it'll show you a little image. Super useful. But if you drop it down, you have more tools, which includes revolve and everything that showed up top, in addition to a couple other tools, box, cylinder, sphere, all these things. Okay, so that's your toolbar, right? Up in the top right, you have your view cube. This will move around. You'll notice as I move around, that gives you kind of a relative idea of how you're looking at your part. So it's a great idea to always design things with that in mind. So if whatever I'm designing, say it's a car, if I were to design one, I would want it so that when I see the front of my view cube, I'm looking at the front of my car, and the right, I'm looking at the right side, and so on and so forth. You'll notice on mine has the Z coordinate up. Yours might be different. You can change that if you want to. I can show you how, but for right now, don't pay attention to what color each of these coordinates is. Doesn't really matter. For 3D printing, if you're doing a lot of it, it can be nice to have your default Z direction be up. You can change that in preferences under default modeling orientation. So if you do a lot of 3D printing, I would change that. But basically, don't worry too much about the colors here. Just focus on right, top, left, back, everything. That's your view cube. You can also click on it and it will snap your camera angles. And so you have faces, edges, and corners. And then, so that's your view cube. In order to move around, if you want to grab your mouse and put a hand on your keyboard, if you scroll your mouse, you zoom in and out. And then if you click your mouse wheel down, your mouse wheel can scroll, but it also acts as a button if you click it in. If you just click down without rolling and move your mouse, you do what's called panning. So this will just move you basically in a plane. And then if you hold shift and then click down while continuing to hold that mouse wheel button and move your mouse around, you'll orbit. Is everyone able to, everyone following along there? Just kind of get used to it, move it around, click your mouse wheel in, pan around, hold shift and orbit, and zoom in and out. Super, super useful. I see a lot of people kind of just get stuck on clicking and rotating the view cube up here. It's way faster if you just get in the habit right now from the get-go of using those mouse commands. Super easy. It's just shift as a modifier to orbit, and then if you don't hold shift, you're just panning. Okay. Lot of yapping. Thanks for sticking with me. We got your browser tree in the top left. This has a bunch of drop downs, kind of like your File Explorer in Windows does, depending on how you set yours up. But you can show and hide these little groupings. And up here under document settings is where you can switch individual documents if you so desire. So let's say I were to be designing something like, I don't know, something like a piece of furniture where I'm doing everything in inches. The client gave me a bunch of measurements in inches. I can just change my active units to inch. And that was just by hovering over units and then clicking the pencil tool up there. You can switch between them. Important to note, this is just setting your default for your unit. Like I said, it's super flexible. So if I were mostly working in inches, but I had one measurement in millimeters, you can just, if I were to need something to be 12 millimeters, I could just type 12 and then mm at the end, and it will know, oh, he's talking about millimeters now, and it's not going to do 12 inches, it's millimeters. Vice versa, too, if you're working in millimeters, need to do something inches, just type IN or use your little quotation mark, and it will adapt. So this is just setting the default where if you're to not tell it millimeters or inches, what it's going to assume. Name views, hardly ever use. We can get to it if we need to for renderings, but for now, I always keep that closed in a way. And once I have my document settings, I'll close that too. Couple more things. At the bottom, you have your history browser. So this is, or like sometimes called the timeline, this will fill up as we go along. So let me see if I have something here that is like full there. I'm just going to open this model, and you'll notice this is a time frame of everything that I've done in this model. And Fusion's super cool. It's really, really good at thinking about everything contextually in a timeline. So I can go back in time. I'm just dragging my cursor back and back to before I did a bunch of the modifications I did to this model. And I could change something now if I wanted to. And Fusion would, once you dragged your cursor back up to the front, would update. Some caveats there. You can break your model if you were to mess with something wrong, but it's generally very good about it, and it's good to keep that in mind when you're 3D modeling, that like rather than, let's say that I had not extruded, this isn't a great example because this is a kind of complex model, but let's say that like this wasn't as tall as I wanted it to be. I could go in and extrude it higher, which is what I just did. But it's best practice in 3D modeling to actually just go back in time to when you originally created a feature and adjust that. So another thing to note is if you click on any face, it will highlight with this little 3 blue ticks above an icon where that was created. So in this case, that face was created in this model from this last offset face that I did. So if I needed to change that, I can just double click on it and edit it.
Andrew,
Yeah.
I have a question over here.
Yeah, what's the question?
So,
What if it's, here, let me, sorry, by the way,
what if
I have,
something happened since you said after you edit it?
it will automatically update. It's really good about that. So as long as it doesn't break the logic that you followed when you originally made the model, it will update it as soon as you finish this. So like let's say, like for example, when I first created this shape, I extruded this guy, however tall this was. This is kind of complicated math thing, oops. But let's just say I did this at 15 instead of whatever it originally was. It's gonna break some stuff in my case because I went kind of too far back and chose a number too different from what it was. But what I'm trying to get at this is a complicated model, and so probably not the best example of it, is it can adjust. And if you've thought about that in advance, it will. Basically, what I'm trying to get at right now is when you can, go back in time and fix your mistakes rather than tacking on, because then this browser tree gets really long. Okay, that's all I'm going to talk about that for now. I'm giving you guys a lot of info. I'm trying to like plant good seeds right now, but it's a lot. So, you know, come back, watch the video, whatever. Like, if you notice that you start to like have your browser bars just pile up like super long, just ask me like, hey, how can I streamline this? How can I make this smaller? What am I doing that's causing this to happen? One thing I see a lot of people doing is they'll create a sketch and then they'll decide, oh wait, actually no, I did that on the wrong plane. They'll finish the sketch. You'll notice how that pops up in my history bar there. And they'll make a new sketch on another plane. And then they're like, oh wait, no, I meant to do it on the other one. And they'll put it on this plane. And now you have 3 sketches, but you're only using one of them. So that's where like it would be useful to go back in time to before you did any of them and just create that sketch on the right face. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's okay if it's long. I'm trying to plant good seeds. If you're kind of just in this class for the fun of it and you're not going to become an industrial designer, don't worry about it that much. If your goal is to be working in a team of other designers, they won't be happy if it's a huge mess and they can't tell how everything was built. So just a good thing to keep in mind. Okay, that's your history browser on the bottom. And then just above that, you have some view settings. I very rarely touch these. You have really the only one that I ever do kind of mess with is the little like computer screen icon. And you can change visual style, which will show you. Let me show you with this model here. I can do it to just shaded where it doesn't show me edges. I can do shaded with hidden edges, and now you can kind of see through it, and so on and so forth. I almost always leave it at shaded with visible edges only. It helps me see where one edge of a face ends and another begins. Use what works best for you. I find for 99% of people, this is what they're typically in. Okay, that's your workspace. It's a lot of info. You'll kind of get used to it as you work with it, but just wanted to give you a rough idea of what everything is that you're seeing on your screen. Just watch as things appear in your history browser as you create things, and watch as you'll notice this is pretty clean and empty in my browser tree, but if I open this model that I already created, as I've created bodies and sketches, they're automatically shown and created here in your little browser tree. So just when you make something, just look at the program, see what it's changed, get used to it. We're going to be using this program a decent amount in this class, so it doesn't hurt to get comfy with it. Okay, so that is everything that's on your screen. Now we're going to, I'll give you a quick rundown of kind of creating some basic shapes. If any of you have already looked at the assignment that's posted on Canvas, we're going to be doing like a composition of some 3D shapes. So Fusion is, in the workspace that we're in, very much a sketch to 3D driven pipeline where you draw a 2D sketch and then you use 3D modifiers, typically extrusions, sometimes revolves, sometimes other things too, to take your 2D shape and make it 3D. So if everyone wants to start following along now, if you guys want to create a new file, and we're pretty much immediately, let me just show you right now how to save. You just hit the floppy disk icon, or on Windows it's going to be Control S. On my Mac it's Command S. Once you click that, you'll name this. So I'll name it Primitive Shapes Demo, I guess. But you guys can name it. What do you title the assignment?
I think I named it like 3D composition or something.
Composition of primitive shapes, whatever, something like that, and your name. So, cool. So I'll name it, and then you'll notice you have your location here. I'm going to change this. It's a good idea to categorize everything. Again, if you're just doing this for personal use, you don't have any intention of working in a team, you can do whatever messy, I mean, we all do it, we've all done it. Just shove everything in one file folder or let it pile up on your desktop. But if you're working with other people, it's a good habit to get into setting up a file structure. So I just dropped down the arrow on the right here, and I do all of my kind of projects in terms of classes, or I have like one file titled personal, and then under that I have like subcategories of different things that I've worked on. So for now, I'm going to hit new project, and then what is this class again?
ID 120.
Cool. ID just
SGN.
okay, yeah, SGN. Yeah, I was going to say. So ID SGN 120. In this case, I think I should already have one, so I'm going to go ahead and find it. But you'll want to create one up at the top there, like I showed you. Cool. So ID SGN 120. And then once I've selected that location, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. One other thing that would be a great idea to do is, if everyone wants to follow along, we're going to go up to our profile in the top right, and we're going to click on it and go down to Preferences. And then under here, you have your automatic recovery backup interval. So this is how often Fusion will auto-save for you. I have mine set to 5 minutes. Highly recommend 5 minutes. I think default is 15. Just do 5. Like, it costs you nothing, and you could even go lower if you really wanted to. But just make sure that you have your files saved. I think... Be able to figure it out? Somewhere in here, I don't remember where it is. I can find it at some point. There is a way to have Fusion. So by default, Fusion will save to their cloud servers. It's a good idea to also have it saved locally to your computer. So if you're using one of the school computers, less of a big deal. If you're using your laptop or a computer at home, totally worth looking into. I don't remember exactly where it is right now. I'm sorry. I just don't remember. But there's some way to make it by default also cache them locally on your computer. If you're using, there is a way to use Fusion360 in a web browser without having to download the actual app. If you're using that, it will, after like 5 minutes of inactivity, just close and delete all your data. That's why I always, always, always highly recommend downloading the app. Some other teachers may tell you it's okay to use the web-based one. If you can spend the extra 2 minutes to download the app, just do it. That way you won't deal with lost files. It happened like 24 times last semester. Some of the other teachers, like I said, say to do that. Please, for your own sanity, don't. I had so many people have to redo full projects just because the computer timed out because they're using the web-based one. So download the app to the computer that you're using. Just keep it simple. Okay. So we set up our autosave interval to 5 minutes, right? And we've already saved this, and now you have it named at the top. You'll notice at the end it kicks in a little V1. Don't worry about that. Every time you save, it just bumps that up another number. When you, let me do, don't follow along for just a second. I just need to do one thing. So if I were to change something and then save, you can, if you want to, label some of the things you've done, like major milestones. I typically don't do this unless I'm working in a group of other people, so I can tell them, hey, rectangle created, and then click OK. I'm going to hit cancel because I don't need to save that. I'm going to undo what I just did there just by doing Command Z. On a Windows machine, it's Control Z. You also have undo and redo up in the top left. OK, let's make some shapes. Thanks for bearing with me. A lot of talking. So like I was saying, Fusion is very much a 2D sketch to 3D shape pipeline. So we're going to start by creating a sketch. So if you click this icon in the top left, the green plus and this little kind of sketchy looking whatever box and quarter circle, you can also drop down and create and click create sketch here. It's the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and click create sketch, and you'll notice now it's waiting for me to select a sketch face. So we're going to start with a cube, and I know that I want the bottom face of that cube to be on what is the default ground plane, which would be, in my case, the XY plane, which is this bottom one here. What I can do is I can orbit around, and going back to looking at our view cube here, I can see that, hey, I'm looking at the top, but I was actually looking at it from the side. So now it reads top. I can also just click on the top face, and it'll automatically snap me to it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this plane, and I'm telling the computer right now, hey, this is the plane that all of my sketch lines are going to be on. So I click that, and you'll notice now contextually everything has changed up here. You have a bunch of different tools. This is good. If you didn't see that change, you might have missed something. If you see what I see some people do pretty often is they'll accidentally finish sketch, and then they'll be like, hey, where'd all my sketch tools go? You probably left the sketch. So that's where paying attention to these contextual tools is super helpful. So speaking of finished sketch, you have your check mark up here. You can also finish sketch down here. But what we want to do right now is we want to create a 2-point rectangle. So I'm going to click on 2-point rectangle, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and I clicked on this origin point here, and then I just clicked once. I'm not clicking and dragging. And then I move my cursor out, and before I click a second time, you'll notice I have these dimension icons and some like auto-filled numbers that adapt as I move my cursor around. One of them's highlighted in blue. So I can just go ahead and start typing, and I'm going to type 100, and now I've adjusted that dimension. If I want to, what's that?
You're in millimeters, so I don't know what.
I'm in millimeters. If you want to do this in inches, you can do a 1-inch cube. Or let's say, hey, I'm in millimeters, but actually I want to do this in inches. I could just type 1 and then do the little twin apostrophe or 1IN, and it'll do 1 inch. Do you have a preference for what they do this in?
I don't.
Okay, I'm going to do it in millimeters. But like I said, super easy to switch between them. Like I showed you, I could do decimeters if you wanted to for some strange reason. You can do all sorts of stuff. But what matters right now is we've input one dimension. I haven't clicked or hit enter or anything. I'm going to go ahead and press tab, and it cycles me over to my other dimension. And I'm going to type 100 again. Did everyone follow that? Anyone doesn't have a rectangle, or sorry, square on their screen? You should have a square and 2 little dimensions that say 100 or whatever it is that you set it at. You can do this at whatever dimensions you want. Okay. So we're done. We've created a square. That's all we need to create a cube. So I'm going to go ahead and finish sketch. I did that in the top right. You can also do that down here. Same thing. And you'll see contextually all your tools change. And we're back into the like 3D shape creation tool set here. So extrude is going to be what you'll use probably like 80% of the time. This will just take a 2D drawing shape that you've created, and you'll be able to extrude it out to become three-dimensional. Everyone remembering, hey, hold shift, click down your mouse wheel, and you can orbit around, or you can pan by just clicking and holding your mouse wheel and moving your mouse. So just get in a good habit of that. You know, zoom around, look at your cube from multiple directions. And you'll see it's still highlighted blue. I haven't hit enter and or clicked OK on my extrusion yet. I'm going to do 100 because I want this to be a perfect 100 millimeter cube. So I typed 100, and then I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. You can also click this OK here, whatever feels right to you. One thing to note too, and we're going to use this in just a second. You have a little, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what they call these little pop-up windows, but these are, dialog box. This will allow you to change some aspects of your, in this case, extrusion, or maybe revolve, or hole, or anytime you use a tool, you'll see this pop up. You can change some stuff about it. In this case, we're going to leave pretty much everything at its defaults right now. But we're going to come back to this in just a minute here, and I'll show you a couple things we can do with this to change it. Okay. Does everyone have a cube? Anyone not have a cube? Couple things that I hadn't mentioned yet that are worth knowing. So if you, I'm going to go back to my original sketch. So I can, it seems like on Windows you're not able to double click to edit, but you can.
Maybe that's why I used to. I'm like, why?
Yeah. On Mac, you can double click to edit it. On Windows, go ahead and right click your sketch icon. And everyone just go ahead and follow along with me actually. We're going to right click your sketch icon, and we're going to click redefine, or no, sorry. We're going to click edit sketch.
One more time, go back.
So sorry, I totally misspoke the first time around. I'm right-clicking the little sketch icon, our very first one. If you have multiple of these, that's what we want to avoid, because right now we only need one sketch. So if you see multiple, when you hover over them, they should highlight and show which one has an actual shape on it. In this case, I only have one. I'm going to go ahead and right-click and edit sketch. And now I can make some changes to my sketch. So this is a simpler way of going back to your question earlier of Fusion updating stuff that you have done things after the fact of, I guess, because what we've basically done is we've gone back in time to when we created the sketch, right? So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to delete. I just clicked on my dimension and I pressed delete. Everyone go ahead and do that. We're going to undo that, and then I'll show you another way to create dimensions. So when we first made that square, what had happened, you don't need to follow along with this. What had happened is it automatically sets out some dimensions for you. But let's say that you created some lines and they didn't default to having dimensions. You can always go back and add dimensions after the fact. You can use your sketch dimension tool up under within your create tab. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And then this allows you to dimension one of two ways. There is one way I recommend, but I'll explain both of them to you. So I have my sketch dimension clicked on and highlighted. You'll notice right next to my cursor, you see the little goalpost icon of the sketch dimension tool. That's just telling me that tool is active. So, like I said, do you have a question?
Sorry, I'm just going to double click to get to the sketch.
Okay, let me back out here. So I'm going to finish sketch. So, like I said, on Windows, I don't think you can double click. I think you have to right click. So use your right mouse button and go ahead and right click it and edit sketch.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Cool. So I've got my sketch dimension tool selected. You see it next to my cursor. Like I said, 2 ways to dimension a line. In this case, I can just click on the line once. I'm not clicking and holding. I clicked it once, and then I can move my cursor up, and I'm basically placing where I want this dimension to be visually. It's a great idea to keep things very nice and tidy and consistent. It's kind of ridiculous to go ahead and put your dimension line up there because now you can't see it. Or vice versa, if I undo that, putting your dimension right here can also be kind of annoying because you wouldn't really be able to see it with the line in the way. So that's one way, is just clicking one line. I clicked once and then I click again to place my dimension. Sorry. And then now it'll allow me to edit it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this one at 150 this time. Let's switch things up. So like I said, 2 ways to dimension. That's the first way. What I think is the more correct way is dimensioning. So I want to set the length of this line here, right? And sorry, my voice is not used to talking this loud for this long. I want to set the length of this line. I can directly set it, or because I want everything to be perfectly parallel, another way you can dimension it is by dimensioning these 2 lines as a distance from each other, and that will automatically adjust this line to be whatever length it needs to be in order for this line and this line to be that set dimension from each other. So it's a little weird, bear with me here, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on one edge, and I already have this dimension here. That's fine, because we're going to click on the other edge before we click to place our dimension just to the right of it. And now I'm going to set that to 150 as well. So, like I said, first way, totally legit, totally works. But in an effort to keep lines that we want to be parallel, it's a good idea to do it the way I had done it. Because, I'll just show you real quick, if I hadn't had those be parallel, I'd find out, I'm exaggerating here, but I would find out pretty quickly when I clicked on one and went to click on the other, and it wants an angle dimension instead of a distance dimension. So it's a good way to catch yourself, because if these were, almost straight but not quite, not quite parallel, and you didn't notice that, that could throw off your model. So that's why I do that. You don't have to. You can do it the first way. But I just wanted to show you that you can dimension one line, in this case, from another one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish the sketch. And now you'll notice I have a short cube because my extrusion was only 100 millimeters, but my square that I drew was 150 by 150. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right-click the extrusion, just like we did for that sketch that we just done. I'm going to right-click that extrusion and edit feature. And now I can change this to 150. And then I can hit enter. So I'm going to undo a couple things. I'll show you one more time. I'm just right-clicking down in your history browser, editing feature, and changing my 100 to 150. Just to set this to be a perfect cube. Cool. All right, we've got one cube. Let's go ahead. Let's make a pyramid. So,
I want a cone.
what's that?
A cone.
Do you want to do a cone?
Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna go ahead and make a cone.
Behind you there.
What's that?
Sphere, cylinder, and cone.
Okay, cool. So let's make a cone. So going back to what I was saying originally about trying to keep our history tree or history browser short, I could create another sketch on this same plane, but I kind of don't need to. I already have a sketch on that plane. And it's really nice to have one base sketch where most of your core features are created in, so you don't have to sort through 6 different sketches to figure out which one was the one that I created my drawing for my cone or my sphere. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put it on the same sketch by right-clicking and editing sketch. So everyone's back in their original sketch. You should already have your square here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to zoom out a little bit and make a little space here where I'm going to place my cone. So there are a handful of different ways to make a cone. I'm going to show you 2 different ways. The first way I think makes more sense in terms of how we're modeling these on one singular sketch. So we're going to start with a center diameter circle, which is going to be up here. So I'm going to click on that. You'll see next to my cursor the little circle icon and then this little box icon. Just so you know, this box icon appears whenever it is snapping to the grid. You can toggle that on and off. I pretty much always leave that on. You can toggle it here. Oh, speaking of which, on the right-hand side on your sketch palette, you can toggle things. You can turn visibility of certain things on and off. For now, don't worry about it too much, but you can play around with this. I'll show you one thing real quick, actually, with it. You'll notice these little icons. It looks like a little comb at the top here. It's a little hard to see. And then another one on the side here, one here. This is the computer telling me, hey, I know that this line and that line need to be parallel. Now, once you have a complex sketch, these end up kind of being everywhere. So if you don't want to see them, if you don't really care about them, you can just click the check mark next to constraints on the right-hand side here. And there we go. Just took a second to load. And now it hides them. And if I want them back, I can turn them back on. I can turn off visibility of my dimensions, and then I can turn them back on, and points, and so on and so forth. You can toggle stuff on and off from the right-hand side. In this case, I'm leaving snap on. I pretty much always do. And the only thing I don't, well, the only 2 things I typically don't have turned on are slice and 3D sketch. Don't worry about those for now. We'll get into them if we need to. I don't really recommend doing 3D sketches. They're just kind of messy. Reserved for very small edge cases where it just doesn't make sense to do a 2D sketch. So don't bother with those, especially unless you absolutely have to and you know you need to. All right, going back to our circle. I've selected my center diameter circle tool here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to place the circle somewhere floating off to the right. I'm just going to put it here. So I'm going to click once. I'm going to move my mouse around, and I can set this guy to be, let's do 250 for the diameter. So I'm going to type 250, and I'm going to hit enter, and now I have my circle placed. Cool. Now this circle, you'll notice on my screen with the kind of color profile I have going on, I have green dimensions and white lines and blue lines. Yours may be slightly different. What's important to know about your visual style here is what the colors mean. So by default, either white or black lines mean this line is fully constrained. So in this case, like these edges of our square are basically locked in place. There's nowhere else that these can be. If I click and hold and move my cursor around, I can't drag it around. Because it's in relation to our origin point, which is right here, and the computer knows that, it can't move around. Now, on the flip side, this circle is blue. If you look at the edge, it's blue. And if I click and hold and drag around, I can move it around. So that's what those colors are. I'm not going to go too in detail today about fully constraining things, but again, if you intend to do a lot of 3D modeling, very important that you get in the habit of fully constraining stuff. For this assignment, I'm not going to worry too much about it. So I've got my circle here with a diameter of 250 millimeters. You can do it whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and finish sketch. And you notice, wait a sec, where did my circle that I just created go? Well, Fusion will automatically, once you have acted on a sketch that you've created, it will automatically hide it. So in this case, I've already acted upon that first sketch when I had extruded my cube. So it's automatically hidden that sketch for me, but I want to extrude again from that sketch. So you'll notice now you have bodies and sketches in your browser in the top left. I'm going to drop down next to sketches here, and I have sketch 3, and the little eye has a cross through it, and it's not filled in, meaning that the visibility is off. I'm going to go ahead and click on that eye to toggle it back on. Does everyone see their circle? Anyone not see their circle? Cool. So just under your browser tree, under sketches, toggle the visibility of sketch on. Yours may be sketch 1, but because I created some sketches and then undid them, mine calls itself sketch 3. What matters is that you have your shapes visible. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do another extrusion with this circle here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click extrude, and then I am going to select our circle, and I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to just drag this arrow up. So you can input by typing, or you can click, hold, and drag on the blue arrow to move stuff around. But wait, we're trying to make a cone, not a cylinder. So a cylinder is basically a cone is, one way to think about it is it's like a tapered extrusion. As this cylinder goes up, it gets narrower and narrower. So what I was saying earlier about us coming back to this dialog box here, we have our distance, which I've set here by dragging our blue arrow, but you'll notice that will adapt based on where I drag mine. But you also have a taper angle. So in this case, I'm going to type negative, let's do negative 15. Let's do negative 20. There we go. So now you'll notice as that extrusion goes up, that that circle becomes smaller and smaller until it's a point, or in this case, now it's a point. And you'll notice with that, it doesn't matter how long this extrusion is. If it's longer than the cone is tall, you'll get a full cone. If it's shorter, you won't get a full cone. But yeah, does everyone have a cone? We've just changed our taper angle to negative 20. You can, if you're making a slightly different shape, you could change it to positive 20, and it'll, go outwards. But in this case, we want negative 20. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click OK. It's going to load for a sec. And I no longer need this sketch, so I'm going to turn it off. And now I can look at the shapes I've created. Let's go ahead and save. You can Control S, or you can click on the save icon in the top left, whatever works best for you. And maybe let's do, under our version description, let's say cube and cone. You don't have to do this, like I said, but if you want to keep things really nicely labeled and tidy, go for it. Always a good habit to just save every once in a while. It, like I said, doesn't cost you anything to set your autosave timer quicker, or save more often, or both. I do both. Okay, we got a cube and a cone. So going back to Fusion adapting, if I wanted to, let's say I think this cone is a little too big in relation to my cube, I can go ahead and I can right click on that first sketch and edit. And then I'm going to change this guy to 200. And then I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to finish sketch, and it's smaller now. So I'll undo that and I'll show you one more time. My cone's bigger than I want it to be. I think the difference in size between these two is too much for aesthetic purposes, whatever it is, whatever reason you have. I right click the first sketch we'd created, edit sketch, and I just clicked on this guy here, double clicked, and typed in 200. And then I finish sketch. Cool. Is anyone missing one of these shapes right now? Everyone sees everything? What's up? The what?
The taper?
The taper? Yeah, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to right-click that last extrusion that I'd created. I'm going to edit feature. And I have my taper angle set at negative 20 degrees, or whatever works best for you. Maybe you want negative 25, and you want an even shorter cone, whatever it is. I like how negative 20 looks. I'm going to leave it at negative 20. But that's the important thing. You do also need a distance in there. If this was just at 0, even if it's at negative 20, it's not going to do anything. So you just need a distance longer than however long it takes to get to that point on the cone. Cool. You got it? Sweet. Okay. Last one we're going to make is a sphere. There is an easy way and a hard way. I'm going to show you the hard way first. Just to familiarize you guys with some more tools. Because yes, you could just click on the sphere and just place one, but that's too easy. So I'm going to show you the revolve tool now, which also going back to when we first started making this cone, I said there was 2 ways to make it. You could have done it with a revolve. I'm actually going to show you how to do both the sphere and the cone with a revolve. So we'll have 2 cones in here. So I'm going to make a new sketch. That first sketch was on the bottom plane, but to me, in my head, it makes more sense for this next one to be on one of these side planes here. You'll see why in a minute, but just go ahead and follow along with me. We're going to go ahead, we're going to create a new sketch, and you'll notice I have my origin plane up here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on, let's do this one. It doesn't really matter. Just put it on one of the side ones. And then in this case, I don't really want to see these bodies right now. They're just kind of in my way. I'm just going to turn visibility of the bodies off by clicking the eye next to them up in the top left. So you can just toggle visibility of those off and on. I'm going to turn them off for now. All right, we're going to make a sphere and we're going to make a cone. I'm going to show you a secondary way to make a cone and the first kind of second way to make a sphere because I showed you that other button to make one. Too easy. So I'm going to start by making the sphere here. Make this pretty simple. I'm going to make a center diameter circle. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click wherever. And then I'm going to click again. And now I have a circle. I just clicked escape, so I dropped my tool. You'll notice next to my cursor I have the little circle icon. If I press escape on my keyboard, I drop that tool because I no longer need it. And now we're going to set the diameter of our sphere. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on sketch dimension. I'm going to click on that circle, and let's do this one at 250. And then I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so one thing to think about is we're going to be rendering out a 3D view of all of our shapes. And if you want your sphere sitting on the same plane as your other objects, it doesn't need to be, but if you want it to be, you're going to want to set it so that this, the bottom of this circle is along this red line. In this case, this is our x-axis. There's a couple ways to do that. We're just going to stick with dimensions for now because it's what we already know. So if I go ahead and I click on the center point of this circle here, and then I click on this origin point here, I can now place a dimension. So you'll notice it snaps a handful of different ways depending on where your cursor is. I can do just like kind of, I don't know how to call this other than like as a crow flies, like the shortest dimension between the two. Or you can set it in terms of axes. So in this case, I want to place the dimension over here because I want to be setting how far from this red line this circle is. So I'm going to go ahead and place it. And then within Fusion Dimensions, you can do math, or you can have it do math for you, I should say. So in this case, I need the radius of the circle. Now this is admittedly very basic math, and if you can't figure this out, not a great sign. But just to show you how it works, I can do 250 divided by 2. So I'm going to type 250. Oop, I can't type. 250, and I'm going to type the slash and 2. And it's going to divide 250 in half for me. So as soon as I click enter, you'll notice my dimension shows at 125. So does everyone have a dimension over here on the left that is setting the height of your circle to be the bottom of your circle, like touching this red line? That's what we want. I'll show you one more time how I did that. I'm going to undo that. I just used my dimension tool. Click on the center point here of a circle, and then the origin point here.
CJ has a question.
Yeah.
How do you switch the, what do you call that?
Just move your cursor around. If you've already placed the dimension, let's say I accidentally placed the dimension here.
No, I mean the plane, the reference plane. I missed out where, like, you're in the queue and we were here, right?
Uh-huh.
You switched it over there.
Uh-huh.
Vertical.
I've made another sketch. So we're not editing the first sketch. We've made another sketch on a different plane.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah.
I'm getting an over-constrained sketch.
Okay, so you might have is the center of a circle on the origin point?
No,
Or do you just already have a dimension there?
I did, but yeah.
What's that?
Yes.
Yeah. You can just go ahead and click on that dimension and click delete. So over constrained just means like I couldn't set the distance of this point to this circle or to this point to be two different numbers. It has to be one, right? This can't be 250 and 150 at the same time. So it will just not even let you create two dimensions that occupy the same measurement, so to speak. I don't know if that really makes sense, but do you have a question? Sorry, I can't hear you. Huh? Resize it? You can just double click on that and change the size. Sorry, I have half of my hearing and I'm not wearing my hearing aids right now. So apologies in advance.
I don't have the measurement.
You don't have it?
You're in
If you don't have it, you can just go ahead and create it. You can click on sketch dimension and then your circle, and so it'll be 250. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna do one more time. I'm gonna be center point of the circle from our origin point, 250 divided by 2, and then hit enter.
I think some of them are having, they're basically their dimension for the circle is hidden. And
Is
so
hidden?
maybe-
Oh, make sure dimension visibility is turned on the right hand side here. Was that the problem?
Oh, it's under when you're in sketch. When you're in sketch. Yeah, just make sure it's able to run,
Okay. Let's try and get this done. I need to be out of here in 20 minutes. So, from this point on, raise your hand or shout at me if you have a question, but I'm not going to take too much time. I'm just going to get all this done. This is all being recorded. You can rewatch this if you missed something. So, we've got our circle. And in this case, what we want is a center line that we will revolve this circle around, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a line by clicking up in the top left. You'll notice also when you hover over things, it will show you in parentheses your keybind for it. So I can press the L key, or in the rectangle's case, I can press the R key. So good habit to be in if you're doing a lot of 3D modeling. Get used to your keybinds. So I'm going to press L for line. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place my starting point just somewhere on the circle, wherever. And then I'm going to place the other point here. Now, you'll notice this isn't a center line. This is kind of dividing it into 1/3 and 2/3. I want it to go directly down the middle. So I'm going to hit escape just to drop my line tool. So I have nothing next to my cursor. This is what it looked like before. It's waiting for me to place a line, but I just press escape to drop the tool. And I can drag this around. Oh, it's going to want to move the circle too, it looks like. But this line we want to go directly down the center of the circle. And one way to do that is to tell the program, hey, this line is going to intersect this center point of our circle. So this is a little entry into constraints here. That's what the center point of your toolbar is. For now, we're just going to use coincident. These will be very useful. You'll get used to them as you go along. If you remember what I was talking about earlier with these little combs and turning on and off the visibility of constraints, that's what this is. So the computer will automatically try and give you as best a guess as it can what constraints you want, but it won't always have everything that you want. So in this case, I want this line to pass through this center point of the circle. So I can go ahead, I can click on the coincident constraint, the one that's shaped like an L, and then it's going to wait for me to select two things, and those two things are going to basically overlap or occupy the same space, depending on whether it's 2 points or a point in a line. So in this case, I'm going to click on the line segment, I'm going to click on the center point, and you'll notice it snaps it right to the center of my circle. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to show you one more time. I use my coincident constraint, the one shaped like an L in the top center left of your toolbar. And then when you use any constraint, it's just waiting for you to select two different lines or points or whatever it is. So in this case, it's a line segment and a point. I just click one, then click the other. Boom. Now those overlap. And that's what the coincident constraint is it's basically overlapping two different objects. Okay. You'll notice I have the little L icon next to my cursor. I'm going to press escape to drop that so that now I have no tools active. And if I hover over these guys, it will show me highlighted two different half circles. That's what I want. Okay. So this is going to end up being our circle. What I'm about to show you, actually, you don't need to do in this case, but it would be good to know this tool. If you use the trim tool, which is up here, little scissors, you can also press T on your keyboard, and click on any edge, it will delete a segment of that edge that is essentially like until it touches something. So you'll see it highlighted in red. So you'll notice it will, if I click this, it's going to delete half of the circle up until it hits this line here. So I just click that, boom. Now I have a half circle. Cool. I'm going to press escape to drop that tool. You see the little bluish X icon. Kind of hard to tell what that is, honestly. It's really small. But I'm just dropping all my tools. Got my semicircle. I'm going to show you that other way to make a cone now. So I'm just kind of rock and rolling at this point. We're going a little faster. I'm going to use my line segment tool in the top left, and I'm going to start at this origin point here. I'm going to click once. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go up, let's say 200. No, I think that's going to be too small. I'm going to do 300. So I'm going to go up 300. I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to load for a sec. And then I'm going to do another one. I'm going to press L again, or I can click on the line tool again. And I'm going to come out to the left of it, let's say 100. And then I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to do one more line segment. I'm going to go from this top point down to this point here. And now we have a right triangle on our screen. So what you can imagine right now is both of these shapes, if we were to rotate and spin this triangle shape around this line here, you would get a cone. Same thing for this semicircle. If I were to spin this around this line here, I'm going to get a sphere. So we're done with this 2D sketch. We're going to go ahead, we're going to finish the sketch. And I'm going to turn visibility of the bodies back on. If you didn't toggle that off, not a big deal. In this case, I'm going to turn it back on so that I have visibility of them all here. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to revolve both of these shapes. So you'll notice it's kind of overlapping with this cube. That's okay. We'll be able to move stuff around a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and click on revolve. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the triangle shape that we have here. It's important that you're not clicking on, you know, the square behind it. We're clicking on the triangle here. That's what it's highlighting. So if you look in your dialog box on the right, it says profile, one selected. That's this triangle that I've just selected. And then if I click on select next to axis, I'm telling the computer, okay, now I'm going to tell you which line or axis to spin around. So I've selected that. You'll notice it's blue now. It's waiting for me to select a singular edge. So I'm going to click on this edge of the triangle. Again, we're making sure we're not clicking the edge behind it. I'm going to click that edge. And you'll notice in my case, because it's overlapping that cube, it defaults to wanting to cut that shape out of the cube. In this case, I don't want that. I want these to be two different objects. So I'm going to change that to new body. It's important we don't do join because then it would make this all a single body and you wouldn't be able to move the cone and cube individually. But if that was your end goal, was to have this all be one body, you could do join and this would stick it all together. But in this case, we're going to do new body so that this new shape isn't tied to this cube. Okay. You should see it kind of showing you what it's going to create. It should look like a cone. And in this case, it does. So I'm going to click OK. And now I have two cones and a cube. And it automatically hid my sketch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show it again. So I've got my sketch icon in my browser on the left here. I'm going to click the eye next to it, turn that visibility back on. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to revolve this semicircle. So we're going to click on the revolve tool once more. We're going to select this shape. And then again, we have to tell the computer, okay, now I'm changing up. I'm going to select the axis now. Because what would happen before is it's waiting for you to select another profile. But we've already selected everything we need to. So I tell it, hey, I'm going to select the axis now. I'm going to click on this line here. I'm going to click OK, and now I have a sphere. I'm going to hide my sketch 4 again. I've got my eye next to it. It's turned on right now. I don't want it anymore. I'm going to turn that off. And now I have all of my shapes.
You're missing a cylinder, but it's easy.
What's that?
You're missing a cylinder, but that's easy.
A cylinder? Yeah. Cylinder you guys can figure out. Same as a cone, just don't use the taper. Or, in fact, let's do this real quick. Let's just go ahead and edit that first cone that we made. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to right click on the extrude that we created that under. You'll notice when I hover over it, it highlights in white what it was that this extrude created. Perfect. So I'm going to right click, edit feature, and I'm just going to change my taper angle to 0. And I'm going to shorten this down to 375. And I'm going to click OK. And so now I have all the shapes that I need. I'm going to save once more. All shapes in place. Like I said, you don't need to change the version description, but it doesn't hurt. And now I have all of my shapes here. I'm going to kind of breeze through this next part because I only have so much time left, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to move things around in whatever way feels pleasing to your eye so that we can then go ahead and render it. So we're going to use the move tool. Or move copy, I should say. Highlighted up here. You can also press M on your keyboard. M is in Mary. I'm going to click that on, and I'm going to, first things first, I'm going to click on this cone because I don't want it. occupying the same space as that cube. And then I have a bunch of move types I can do. In this case, I'm just going to use the standard translation. This is just moving this in X, Y directions. If you have free move on, it also gives you some handles to rotate and drag in a plane and whatever, but I don't need that. I want to keep it simple. I want to minimize how many mistakes I can make. I just want to move this using those single directions. Now, let's say that you wanted to, for whatever reason, rotate one of them. Cool, you can totally use free move. But for now, I'm just going to show it to you with our translate. Okay, I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to use the move tool once more. And actually, maybe I will rotate this one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click and drag on this outer handle here until it tilts. And then I'm going to click on translate. And so now I'm just dragging it straight vertically. So you can mess around with this. You can orient these however you want. The important thing is you get to a place that you're happy with your arrangement. And then we're going to save it. And then we're going to switch to our rendering tool. So going back to all my yapping at the beginning of class, we have our kind of toolboxes or workspace in the top left. So I just clicked on design. It gives me a drop down, and I'm going to switch my toolbox to the render one, or my workspace to render. And now you'll notice everything switches up. I got different lighting, all my tools are different, what have you. You'll also notice, for you keen-eyed observers, we just went from what's called isometric view to perspective. So this is how your eye actually sees things. Eyes have a little bit of, you see these edges kind of tapering towards the horizon line, which would be, you know, somewhere off in the distance. Whereas when we're in our normal workspace, it's like ortholinear, it's not in perspective. So that's another thing to take into account. Depending on what you're designing, a lot of things, like especially cars, people, even when they're in the design workspace, will switch their camera to perspective because it gets you a better idea and read on how it would look in the real world. But for simpler shapes, for stuff like we're doing right now, I just do all my modeling in orthographic. And then once I go to render, it knows to render in perspective. Okay. Now I can go ahead and I can change some materials if I so desire. So I'm going to click on Appearance up in the top left. Now, do you have it set for them? They should be doing these all in white, or can they do whatever they want?
Do whatever they want.
Whatever they want? Cool. So you have a bunch of drop downs here. I can scroll through these. I'm going to make a couple different shapes, a couple different materials. If you click on any of these, it's going to open up you know, all of the options underneath it. If you do a wood, I really like the wood solid, which does not seem to be opening for me right now. Oh, there we go. And once you find a material that you like, you can just go ahead and click and drag and just drop it on any anything you have in here. So now I want to make one of these concrete. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that onto my cone. And then maybe I want, I do not like how small it makes this by default. I'm going to change one of these to, and you will need to download, by the way, these, you know, visible, whatever, materials. So just click on the little download icon, and then you can just click and drag that on over. This is a pretty ugly composition, but that's okay. Cool. So I've got all of my individual appearances set up. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set up my scene settings. So you got two tabs here. I'm going to start by going to the environment library. So I clicked on the scene settings. It's just a little sphere in this corner. I'm going to go to environment library, and you can switch up. You can select any of these and change up your lighting. Some of them will even give you like some sort of background. I typically personally like mine on stuff like photo booth or whatever. In this case, I'm going to stick with photo booth. It has a nice drastic, lighting to it. Gives me some hard shadows. And then I'm going to go back to my settings tab, and I can change a handful of things. For now, I'm not really going to. You can turn on and off your ground plane and reflections and whatever. I'm going to leave them on. I kind of like how it is. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. Cool. So we've set up our scene. We're in the photo booth. We've set up our materials. So each of these has different colors. Now I'm going to go ahead and render. I have two different ways I can render. What's that? What's that? The last step? Yeah. So I changed everything, all my scene settings in this little tool here. And I changed my environment under the environment library tab and the settings under the settings tab. Cool. So I got two rendering options. I usually like to start with in-canvas render. It just lets me kind of orient things how I want them to look when I do my final render. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice everything's going to go pixely. And you'll get to watch as the computer renders up your shapes. So I like to do this so that I can orbit around and find a composition that I like and a certain zoom level, whatever works best for me. And then once I've found, okay, let's say that I'm not super happy with this composition, but it's whatever, it's just for show. I like how this is. I'm going to go ahead and do a final render. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my in-canvas render. You'll notice when I need to start it, it's the little green button, the play button, and then red for stop. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to click on the teapot, and this is going to be your full render, the whole 9 yards. So I'm going to switch mine to local renderer. You can leave it on Cloud Renderer for those of you who are on a school account. I think that we have cloud credits. That's just basically having Autodesk Fusion servers render it rather than your computer do all the processing locally. My computer's fast enough. These computers should be fast enough to do local render. I'm going to change my image size to whatever. I honestly like to do 4K, so that would be a width of what is it? 3160 by 2840, I think it is. I don't remember. Someone correct me if I'm wrong.
3840.
So what's that?
3840.
3840. Thank you. That's what it is, and 2160. So that's going to be high resolution. For your first couple renderings, you can do them lower resolution if you want to, but we're basically setting the width and height in pixels. And then I'm just going to leave mine at the final render setting. You can do standard, you can change. This is going to change how perfect the render is. In Fusion, honestly, past 75 is diminishing returns. Fusion is not going to give you, without a ton of work, a real photorealistic rendering. That's what other programs are for, but 75 I find is the sweet spot for a nice looking rendering. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click render. And it says local rendering started. In a second, it will pop up in my rendering gallery here. And it's going to go ahead and render in the background. You can click on this at any point, and it'll show you where it's at in the render. So it's a little pixely right now. It's still rendering, and it tells me a remaining time of 5 minutes. I don't have that much time. I need to run it to help out another class. I'm going to change my render settings to be super low resolution so that I can just get this to render quickly. And so you'll see that green bar goes through. It's pretty much done. Once that green bar disappears, I can open that and download that image. So I clicked on that little download icon, and I can change this to Andrew Galbraith. Primitive shapes render. Name it whatever you need to. Just put your name in there so that it's easy to submit, easy for her, whatever, easy for everyone. And then save it wherever you normally save all of your stuff for this class. And then you'll go ahead and you'll submit that to Canvas. Are you having them submit Fusion
Discussion, no, it's just.
files or
it's
just the render?
Just a JPEG.
Just the render.
To the discussion, but I think it will also accept PNG. I knew there was a place to change it to JPEG.
Yes, you can change JPEG, PNG, I think PDF for some reason. There's a handful of things you can do it as. Yeah.
Cool. That's a lot of info.
Yeah, lots of info. I did